Hi everyone, I'm Jessica Conrad, one of the specialists with the PATINS project, and this is a recorded version of Core Word Workouts, our distance learning edition. My hope is that this session will give you some ideas on how to support our students who use AAC and need exposure to core words for students who are experiencing e-learning or distance learning situations. So right now it is March 20th, 2020, and yesterday our governor announced that all schools will be closed effective until May 1st at the earliest. So hopefully some of the resources I'm going to share are going to support your students and some considerations as you think about what distance learning looks like for this population of students who are using AAC and distance learning. I'm going to share my screen. The software that I'm using is called Zoom, and we're going to talk a little bit about Zoom within this session. So like I said, my name is Jessica Conrad. I've been a PATINS specialist. I'll be ending my 4th year, which I think makes me a 28th grader. And this is my email and contact information, and you'll get it again at the end, because at the end I will give you the slides and a ton of resources, but you need to fill out an evaluation at the end of this webinar, as well as email me to request those resources. This slide is in all of our presentations, and I feel like this representation of the Every Student Succeeds Act and what Indiana schools are supposed to be doing for every single student enrolled in our public schools is just as important today as it ever has been, especially when you look at if these are all the things that we are doing for every student. Every student gets access to instruction, assessment, appropriate curriculum. You can't do any of these great things unless you have access right here in the middle. And all of these things get supported, kind of like a great big hug by Universal Design for Learning. That can ensure that every single student has access to all of these very important components. So again, unless our students have access to language and access to text, and unless we're designing all of this with our Universal Design for Learning, hugging all of that in between, our students aren't going to have access during their distance learning experience. And that is where PATINS project comes in. We are here to support you in that access and Universal Design for Learning to make sure that every single student has equitable access to their education. So addressing the elephant in the room, they sure didn't teach this in college, did they? And I think one of the best things that has come out of this is a lot of really great discussion ensuring that every single student has access to their education. And what does that look like for students who may not have internet access or may not have access to the tech that they need? So to start off with making sure that we're all on the same page, what do I mean by distance learning? Distance learning, I'm using it synonymously with e-learning and with telepractice. And a lot of the research and resources that I'm pulling into this presentation a lot of them will refer to telepractice relating to how a therapist might be giving their services, e-learning, a term that we use a lot in Indiana, and distance learning. So that can include face-to-face, something like Zoom or Google Duo or Hangouts, FaceTime, Skype, all of those things. Coaching and modeling, whether that's live or recorded. So you guys right now are participating in a recorded version, and I've also presented this live. Emails and texts, and self-paced tutorials and videos. When we look at all these resources, they're kind of divided into two categories, synchronous and asynchronous. So right now you're participating in an asynchronous coaching or supportive educational experience. A lot of the synchronous things, such as live Zoom meetings, have shown to be a very promising opportunity for our students with complex learning needs and complex communication needs. The really good news about all of this, when we start thinking about our students with the most complex communication needs, we've been talking about telepractice and distance support for decades for this population, because when you are someone who has the most complex communication needs, you live in the middle of nowhere, there's not going to be a specialist around for hours, miles and miles and miles. So we've actually been talking about this for a long time. Telehealth and teleeducation is more and more common every year. Many school districts are already employing teleeducation services or teletherapy services through speech language pathologists or educators for a long time. We have a lot to be able to pull from as far as research and best policy. So the American Speech Hearing Association has their Special Interest Group 18, which is all about telepractice. The International Journal of Telerehabilitation has also been a really great resource. The ASHA practice portals and evidence maps around telepractice. And as of right now, as of this recording, the Informed SLP, which is normally a fee service that goes through speech pathology related services, research, I should say, speech pathology related research and writes reviews and sort of gets you the best information as far as looking at what research articles could best support your practice. They have made everything regarded to telepractice free right now. So a lot of really good introductory reviews that you can peruse. And then of course in 2012, the International Society for Augmentative and Alternative Communication had a tele-AAC resolution, kind of went through some of their stances and beliefs regarding telepractice and telesupport for individuals who use AAC. And the comment being, you know, through all of this, if I were to sum it up, this is a very promising practice. There is not a ton of research and a ton to gather, but even students as, you know, young as our birth through 3 population have been shown to benefit from distance learning if we design it the right way. So very positive and affirming for what we're doing here right now. And of course, PATINS project is one of your resources. I'm going to pop into our website and just wanted to point out right at the top of here, we've added a banner. Anything new that is going on as far as helping you support and succeeding and providing equitable education for your students is going to be over here. Every day through at least the end of April, we're going to be having daily office hours at 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. Eastern. That is going to be available for you to just pop in with your quick questions or maybe even deeper questions that we need to dig in. It gives us the ability to provide on-the-spot training for you. If you can't make those hours, just shoot us an email. We're more than happy to support. As well as other resources for distance learning, including resources for getting closed captioning in distance learning, resources for supporting AAC, of course, our Zoom office hours, all of our webinars, Twitter chats, digital content support, comparing and contrasting different video conferencing solutions. Anything we can do to support you and your students. And of course, one of the first comments we got when we did the live version, somebody mentioned it takes a village, and absolutely, and PATINS is very proud to be part of your village. And we have a lot of other friends and colleagues within our Indiana Resource Network that are available to support you, supporting your students. So PATINS and the ICANN project and all of our friends at Project Success, IEP Resource Center, and many others. Let's take a look at one study in particular that showed how you can leverage asynchronous coaching and online tools to help parents on their own time learn how to use some of these methods that we're already using in our schools. So this is a study that was done in 2017 by Douglas and colleagues who taught parents what they call the POWER method. So these are strategies or techniques that you have seen over and over again in a lot of other really good AAC intervention. So POWER for them is an acronym that means prepare the activity and the AAC. Parents were given handouts of developmentally appropriate activities. And then the other 3 sections of this are offer opportunities for communication, wait for the child's communication, and respond to that child's communication attempts. And they were given online training modules, none of them more than 20 minutes, usually between 6 and 20 minutes of modules to kind of help support what that looked like and how they could use those techniques. And like I said, that acronym, that POWER acronym, that is very much the heart and soul of a lot of what we're doing already in schools to enhance communication for our children with complex communication needs. But this was done asynchronously, so parents were doing this on their own time using some pre-made training modules and some handouts. And the results were very promising. It increased communication opportunities and responses from the parents, and it also increased communication attempts from the child. So a really great piece of evidence to show that all this asynchronous training and coaching can be really effective. So PATINS and the ICANN project and all of our friends at Project Success, IEP Resource Center, and many others. So going through this, there are tons of fantastic ideas that people have given and annotated and collaborated on. And the joy of this, it's not stealing, it's lesson lifting. You are going to be lesson lifting a ton of really great ideas and tweaking it to make sure that it makes sense for your students. So with all of these ideas, every single one of them, as of today, they are free. They are either free or open source. And all the resources that I'm going to cover specifically related to core words, I want to make sure that we're all on the same page when we're talking about core words. So core words are about 200 to 500 words, depends on which researcher you're talking to, of English words that make up 80 to 85% of the words that we use every day for adult fluent English speech. So those words are super common words like I and like and give and need and go and not and stop. Super common words. A lot of preschool and kindergarten and first grade teachers would recognize them as fry words or sight words. Certainly there's a large overlap between those two sets of words. The other words that don't make up that 80 to 85% are what we call fringe words. These are words like goldfish cracker and toilet and mommy and puppy and the names of people in my family and my favorite characters on television. It isn't that those words aren't important, but in adult English, they don't show up as often. So for example, if I were to teach a student the word goldfish cracker, that might be their favorite snack in the world. It only ever means goldfish cracker, and I'm only probably going to talk about it to get a snack or talk about it during snack. If I teach the word eat, however, or go or not, I can use that in a variety of situations all day long. And educationally, when we think about words that we're trying to support our academic goals, again, 80 to 85% of those words that are going to show up in print and text and the words that we use in instruction are going to be core words. It isn't that fringe words aren't important, they just don't show up as often in adult English. When we think about the questions that we use in instruction or how we provide instruction, a lot of our instruction traditionally is what we call referential. So these are one-word answers that the answers are almost always going to be nouns. So what is the planet closest to the sun? It's Mercury. Who was the first president of our country? George Washington. I can go the rest of my life without saying George Washington or Mercury. However, if I were to flip that around and ask, tell me about George Washington or tell me about Mercury, the words I'm going to use are going to be core words. So for example, if I flip that question around and say, tell me what purpose do enzymes play in human biology? Pretty advanced high school question. And I answered break down food, help eat. I absolutely demonstrated my understanding of what enzymes are. However, if I just asked what breaks down food in the digestive system, I answered enzymes, but I could go the rest of my life without saying enzymes. So think about how we're providing our instruction and supporting students and getting to the words that are most common. So for example, if I had the word big, yellow, bird, and happy, what am I talking about? And hopefully you guessed Sesame Street's Big Bird, you'd be absolutely right. If I said run, fast, long, win, you were guessing a marathon or a race? Yep, absolutely. What about this one? And I chose this one because if you teach elementary or you're a speech language pathologist, you have many, many copies of this book. It's a book title, very common book title. And I'll say I probably have shown this to 300 people and nobody has guessed what it is. There was an old lady who swallowed a fly. Why didn't you guess that one? I probably could have been silent for another 2 minutes. Nobody would have guessed this. Because when we talk about core words are not pictures and they're not easily represented by an icon. When you look at core words or examples of robust augmentative communication, those core words, the pictures associated with them do not make sense. They don't need to make sense. They're meant to give a little bit of visual discrimination between the different words. So when we're talking about teaching students how to use it, I'm not wanting them to match up to the picture or understand what the picture means. I want them to understand that if they were to touch or hit or gaze at a word, that has meaning and it affects what goes on in your world. We aren't adding one more thing to the plate. We're talking about the plate everything is on. So the very best instruction that you can give distance learning or in your classroom is always going to be where it is embedded throughout everything you do in the day. One of the resources I can give you is a modified coaching manual sheet that helps teams think about what is the best use of our resources and our time to support a family-centered intervention. So those of you who worked in First Steps, this is going to seem very familiar. If you do routine-based intervention, this is going to seem really, really familiar, where you ask the family, what is a routine that the student is already involved in with your family that you would like to change a little bit? So for example, one of the families might say, you know what, we're trying to get him to be a little bit more independent with the laundry, and he's really struggling with sorting the whites and the not whites and trying to put them in, you know, their respective baskets. Certainly not a typical academic task, but we can make that an academic task. We can make that definitely a communication task. How cool would it be to be able to coach that family from a distance using landline telephone if they don't have access to internet, being able to, you know, Skype or Zoom or whatever conferencing solution your district has approved, to be able to show, okay, let's set up the two baskets and we have our communication board, and all you're going to do is point to put in, and not. So talking about, okay, do we put this in here or is it not white and we need to put in over here? And going through that. So suddenly this is an activity that happens frequently in this household. This family has identified, gosh, this is something I want my child to participate more in. And now we've embedded a ton of really important language that I can use over and over and over again in a lot of different settings. So again, giving parents the control and the choice to guide where our instruction needs to be is a really valuable kind of upside to this distance learning situation, being able to make our services more family-centered. Talking about the gear, if we're talking about workouts, we've got to have gear, right? So some questions about where can I get core boards or AAC? So while we're currently under distance learning protocols, our lending library has closed and will reopen when it is safe to do so. All of our AAC resources, again, that link on our main website, if you click on the resources for students using AAC while e-learning, this entire section are all printable or online boards that you can use at no cost. Again, as noted right here, these solutions are not necessarily an equitable replacement of the system that your school selected to support access to FAPE. So I'll say that again, it's not necessarily an equitable replacement. If that student, for example, is using an iPad with Lampwords for Life, the paper board may not necessarily be an equitable replacement. And if it is not, that was something that your case conference committee needs to address and create a plan for how does my student get the equitable solution for access. This is directly from Indiana's Article 7. As a reminder, on a case-by-case basis, the use of school-purchased assistive technology devices in a student's home or other settings is required if the student's case conference committee determines that the student needs access to those devices in order to receive a free and appropriate public education. Again, it's the case conference committee decision that determines, does the technology go home? Furthermore, in an e-learning situation, which is not the same as providing it during the weekends or summer off, during e-learning situations, students need to have access to all of their accommodations and modifications. The environment, where are we talking about how this is set up. So I'm going to give you a little tour of my situation. So a little bit about me. I'm a speech language pathologist who works for PATINS, and I frequently do teletherapy and teleconsultation. It is actually one of the main modes of how I work. Previous to joining PATINS, I was the homebound speech therapist for several school districts. And when I had a sniffle or a cough or something like that, it was dangerous for me to be in the home. So I would set up teledistance support and therapy that way as well. So my setup, I am either on a desktop or a laptop. Sometimes I'm doing this in my car. Sometimes I'm borrowing an empty office in another school. I always have my iPad with a charging cable, so just the normal charging cable that's hooked up into my computer. So I have my iPad. I have low-tech examples. I'm going to show you how I display those. If I'm in a situation where I cannot control the volume, I have a headset. I will say that I've never had fantastic experience with anything wireless. As soon as it's wireless, things go wrong, and I just don't like the headache of that. So everything that I do, it's almost always going to be plugged in. So this one, I don't think I spent more than $25 for it, and it's USB connected. I have my handy rolling cart, and I'm going to show you that in a second. And I always have a screen or my backup against the wall, and I can't overemphasize that enough. Your family right now are not going to really be aware of how wide this camera angle is, and they will come up or walk by exactly when you don't want them to. So the best thing I can say, put your backup against the wall or hang up a sheet or do something if you can't control, you know, what the rest of your family is going to be doing. In Zoom, I'm gonna do that right now. Zoom allows me to plug in my computer, and this will work on a Windows or a Mac. I can share my iPad via the cable, or I could have done it remotely, or wirelessly, I should say. You all are seeing my iPad. So I can bring up apps. So I can have a conversation with my student, and then there's this piece right here. I could have also brought up an AAC device. I could have also brought up, you know, websites or anything on my iPad. But my favorite thing to do on this is the camera. The camera is probably my favorite thing. So I don't know if you've noticed, but the thing behind me, that is not actually my office, you guys. This is a green screen with a fake office, and it's actually a really fun thing to play around with. You don't necessarily need a green screen. Some computers allow you to have like a fake green screen, so you can have anything behind you, and then it'll set up a fake environment, so you can, you know, pick Disney World, pick the beach, pick outer space. That's really fun. So this is my very messy office, and this is my handy rolling cart. So this used to be in my bathroom, and I just cleaned it off, and I set that on top. Now this is like my little portable electronic camera system. There's certainly systems that are, you know, $250 or a little portable camera or something like that. But this works out really well. I get to go back and forth really quickly, showing things on my iPad and then having things down here to hands-free demonstrate. So think about, you know, math instruction or an activity or a craft that you're wanting to show. This can be a really nice, simple option. I'm going to go back to my slides. Here we go. Some of the conversation that we've been having with Indiana stakeholders is, you know, some of the benefits or some of the things that are good that are already coming out of supporting our students through distance learning. One of the big things is increased family communication for families implementing this at home and how does it work, and getting familiar with the communication devices like never before. That has been a really good thing that's been coming out of this. And certainly more opportunities to practice in one of the most natural settings there are. You might only be in a school for 15 years or so, but you're going to be in a home for decades. And what a great way to utilize all those natural routines that come in home. There's more opportunities to train our students, lifelong communication partners. So speech language pathologist, I might have a student for 4 or 5 years in a row. Teacher might have them for 2 to 6 years, but you're probably going to have your mom, your dad, and your siblings for much, much longer. So if I'm going to spend an hour training anybody, training the family makes a ton of sense. And certainly there's been a lot more focus and discussion and opportunities about providing equitable education for our students with the most complex needs when we're in e-learning and distance situations. It certainly looks different in every home and every school district, how we're approaching it, but there's been a lot of really great conversation around that, and I think that's really exciting. Some ethical considerations highlighted really well by the ASHA SIG 18 telepractice group, talking about some ethical considerations, and certainly for speech language pathologists, what that means when we're thinking about telepractice and the code of ethics. So of course, when you're thinking about these software and the space that you're providing your therapy or your instruction, making sure that you are adhering to all of the relevant laws. This might be FERPA, this might be HIPAA, kind of depending on your situation and your work activity. Again, we would refer you back to your school district and having those conversations about, do we need a business agreement with your software, it's called a BAA, or do we need to set up the room in such a way, all those things will want to have a conversation with your school district. Do you have a backup plan if the technology fails? If they cannot get Zoom to work, if they can't get Skype or whatever it is to work, do you have a backup plan for that? And ASHA is very specific about your responsibility of supporting and having a backup plan should the technology fail, which it will. It's not like if it will fail, something will go wrong. And then also thinking about who is going to be in that room and how can you ensure confidentiality. Again, referring you back to your school district to have those conversations of, can you have group sessions? Can you, support students and their families in a way that's going to make sure that confidentiality and your related confidentiality laws are in line. Environmental considerations. Where are students going to be? I think this has been a really fun conversation because I think most people are thinking, oh, we got to sit at the kitchen table. We can be on the couch. We can be on the floor. There's lots of places we can be. And we know that students' bodies learn best in lots of different ways. So providing parents permission to use some flexible seating. And that's been a really big key that's come out of school districts who've been doing this for a while with some success, is giving the home partners, the family, whoever that is that's going to be their communication partner, permission to make choices. Just like you give your students choices, giving family choices. I've seen some really great bingo boards and some like core word of the day, calendar type things, and just giving parents permission to, you know what, this week pick 3 things. Pick 3 things that you think you want to do. Really great opportunity to provide, the most flexible choice and voice in their families' access to this educational opportunity. And then how can we use what's available at home and being shared between family members? So some really interesting things as far as maybe there's only one smart device in the home and that's mom's phone and she needs it for work as well. And how can we, best set this up? Does it have to happen in normal school hours? Does it have to happen Monday through Friday? Can there be some asynchronous opportunities paired with some things that are live and synchronous? Lots of really great ideas on how to do that. Equity considerations, some things that have frequently been coming up that schools are addressing. If they don't have access to the internet or any device, how can they still receive equitable services? Some solutions or some ideas that have been floating around as far as using the mail, using landlines and providing just audio coaching and audio support, providing families with, as of today, at least 2 major internet providers in our metro areas have been providing, like a free basic plan for qualifying students. setting up or, guiding parents if you can get into a car and parking outside our local libraries. Many of our local libraries have shared maps and things where you can park in this part of the parking lot and you'll still have access to the free Wi-Fi. When parents have multiple demands for their limited resources, thinking about how can we collaborate with all the teachers at the entire school is doing like a book that they're reading. How can we make sure that our students who are using AAC can participate in that? And so siblings and family members can share those kind of resources. Engaging beyond the screen. This was actually one of the most common questions as far as, something like this, how can I make sure that my students are engaged? Because we know that they need lots of repetition and they benefit from lots of multisensory experiences. So beyond coaching, taking a look at what the research says, the magic happens when somebody responds. We know this in in-person experiences, but the research on telepractice and distance learning is the magic happens in the brain when I do something and my communication partner responds at a reasonable amount of time, usually within a couple seconds. And that's when the brain activity occurs. That's when the dendrites form, right? So whether I, the therapist or teacher, am responding or I am training the family members to respond in that way, both are great. So when we're thinking about engaging beyond the screen, I just need things that respond and be able to reinforce what my student is doing. There's a lot of really great at-home fidgets if your students don't already have access to them. My favorite is those like twisty curly things if mom has some curlers and being able to fidget and play with those. All the kitchen materials like the plastic spoons and things like that, those can make great fidgets. Having dance parties with Tar Heel gameplay, and I'll show that in a second, that's been a really great thing to do with groups or one-on-one. Making your own manipulatives with things around your home, especially when we're talking about augmentative communication, the best AAC is going to be the AAC that's used. My favorite board that I ever made was on the back of an Arby's receipt, and I drew, two different things that were choices, and I ripped it in half and had the two hanging up, and you looked at the one that you wanted. That was the best thing I ever made. It's called just-in-time programming. If we're talking about on the fly, just drawing something, it's called just-in-time programming, and it's an evidence-based intervention. You should absolutely be making things up as you go, because if you need it right in that moment and your student gets it, that's when the dendrites form. Again, finding routines within family and talk and learn about it. So the laundry and the cooking and the cleaning, playing games, taking care of the pets, going for walks, whatever that's going to be part of your routine, and it's going to be happening frequently. And again, providing that ability, that voice and choice for your family and the other communication partners, being able to say, you know what, this is the activity that's important to me. Exercise routines, that's another one that kind of goes with dance party. There's a lot of really great free educational exercise routines, and anything we can do to get even just a little bit of body movement and pair that with music and someone responding and mimicking what you're doing, that can be really, really great. And another fun one is sing-alongs and karaoke, not a phrase that I coined, but gosh, I wish I did. Go ahead and pop over there. So this is the March karaoke playlist with great classics such as Bon Jovi's You Give Love a Bad Name and Locomotion by Kylie Minogue and Stronger by Kelly Clarkson, and tons of core words that are associated with that. What a great activity for your families to pick, like, oh, what's your favorite song? And match all those core words. Or right now, probably most Indiana kids who have access to Disney Plus, they're watching Frozen 2. And if the song is Into the Unknown, that's full of core words, and we can use that to leverage our what we're doing. And the siblings and everybody can take part of that. Core word resources and lesson plans. I'm going to hop into that list that I showed you before on the PATINS website. So again, we have our section about more support. Anything that you see on this, if you're an Indiana pre-K-12 public teacher or therapist or staff member, you have access to all of our support at no cost. So understanding or selecting any of these or ones that aren't even on this list. And then any of these, as far as how do I use it, you know, you poked around, how can I use it, what pieces of this might be the best to use with my particular student. I'm going to pick out just a few of these that I think, you know, I find myself, I've used a lot, or I've coached teams that use this a lot and have a lot of great things to say about. So Core Word Classroom and these two resources are all from the makers of Perloqua to Go. The great thing about this and all of the ones that are made by vendors, it doesn't really matter what core word system you're using. Just so long as it's core word based, you're going to be able to use all of this. So beg and borrow from all of these companies that are giving you free things, because it's going to make a lot of sense for any user that's using core words. So probably my favorite are these core word 5-minute fillers. There are, I don't know, over 40 of these, and none of them are food-based. And a lot of them are very appropriate for older students, which can be really hard to find those activities, right? So for example, if I have a student who's really interested in water and loves, you know, super soakers and the hose and playing with the faucet, pop this up. This is just a one-page that just talking about just that activity. And what I love about it is sometimes we get stuck in this idea of we're working on functional communication and focusing all of our energy on wants and needs, asking, requesting, and labeling, requesting and labeling. And we really need to get beyond that, right? We can't just focus on just wants and needs, because functional communication includes giving and getting information and social interaction. So what I like to do is take something like this, you know, family says, oh, you know, we try to go outside every once in a while and the kids love playing with the super soakers. Okay, let's use the super soakers and highlight just one or two phrases. Most people are just getting started. Maybe this entire list might be a little overwhelming. Just highlight a few of these and just say, you know what, as an adult, I want you to model on there. Oh, you want the super soaker? Who's next? Who's gonna get wet next? Who's going to be next? Ooh, I don't like it. Ooh, I don't like it. Don't get me. I don't like it. What a great skill. If I can get my student to tell me, I don't like it, stop it, I don't want it, that is a great skill that's going to serve them for the rest of their life. So those are 5-minute fillers. Again, tons of great choices from the Core Word Classroom. Again, free. Going to pop into Tar Heel Gameplay. I mentioned this before, talking about dance parties. So this is a free resource from the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, and the Center for Literacy and Disability Studies. So for example, like I said, right now, from what I hear, you're all watching Frozen 2 on Disney+. If I have a student that loves Frozen 2, I can search for any YouTube video, and a lot of these YouTube videos have turned into cause and effect activities or choice making activities. So I'm going to pull up a cause and effect activity. Cause and effect activities are much, much easier to create because I can just set this up where it only goes for so long. Fun little tip down here, there's a gears icon, and I can change the playback speed of this. So for example, if I want this to go a little slower because maybe I want to model during this, or my student just needs a little bit more time to process, I can make that slow down quite a bit, or I can speed it up.
Press.
So it stops. So again, we can have our dance party and then it stops. And then somebody needs to tell me more or go or press or whatever it is the word that we're working on to make it keep going. Now I can do this if I'm the teacher that's interacting with it. I can do that with just the space bar on my computer, and that'll make it stop and start like that with my space bar. Or you can have Tar Heel Gameplay do this. And again, parents can look up or create their own Tar Heel videos really quickly. Again, any YouTube video you can turn into a cause and effect or choice making activity. I'm going to pull up my favorite choice making activity on here. So I used to work in high schools, and it was so hard to find activities that were age appropriate and things that their peers were using. So this is Temple Run. It was an app that a lot of my high school students just loved. playing with on their phones.
Jump or duck.
And this is Temple Run. This isn't pretend Temple Run with a teddy bear. This is Temple Run.
Turn.
So I can have this set up on switches if my student needed it. So I can have them.
Jump or duck. Turn. Jump or duck.
So one switch being move the choice, move the choice, move the choice, select the choice. Or they can tell me turn, because maybe before we were using that core word turn for turn this way, turn that way. And now we're talking about, you know, my turn, your turn. So we can switch back and forth between those two. Or up instead of jump or duck. Or maybe saying duck. Maybe we've been talking about the animal duck and now we're going to use it like duck down. And if I make a wrong answer, the natural consequence happens. It ends. I'll pull out one last favorite thing. There's so many great things. Oh, two last favorite things. So I want to give a shout out to Muncie Community Schools. Sarah Coggin shared what her SLP and herself have been creating these easy lesson plans using core words. And I love, for example, if I have a student who loves playing with a ball, give some ideas, that idea of a first 8, a first 15, first 30 sets of words, which you might be using in your classroom as well. What core words kind of go along with playing with the ball, and what sorts of fringe words you might need, what materials you might need, and some simple instructions as far as modifications, physical modifications, things like that. So thank you so much for sharing that. It's awesome. And then the last resource I wanted to pull out, I'm gonna swap and share my iPad screen. Is from Toby Dynavox. Called Pathways to Core First. You can create, this can go on any iOS device or on a Windows or a Mac computer. And all of this is free. So I can create a student profile, or I just have a demo profile. What I love about this is, for example, I can go into building skills and I can choose different things that I want to work on. For example, use some daily activities. And help me find activities. I'm going to say these are some of the activities I want to work on. It'll give me pre-made activities. There's over 50 weeks of lesson plans already built into this, with letters to go home to parents, things that they could work on. There's lots of videos embedded within this that show what this would look like in a home environment. If I wanted to work on, say, building social interaction, going beyond requesting, gives me a short little video that I'm going to skip.
We interact.
I can go into asking questions, and here's my lesson plan. It's going to, just like all of these, they're going to reference their own product, but again, any student using a good, robust core word language system, you're going to be able to find how this certainly aligns to what you're trying to do. So 5 days worth of lesson plans already built in there, along with printable books and lots of resources. Swap back to here. And one last thing, as of Wednesday, the AAC Language Lab has made all their resources free for a 2-month subscription. When I signed up, they didn't ask for any credit card information or anything like that. So lots of really great activities. You can take a peek even without signing up for your free 2 months. Lesson plans and activities built around this idea of stages. So if you remember Brown's morphological stages, it's all based on that, and lots of really great ideas on how to get started, free printables and little activities that you can embed within Canvas or share on your Google Classroom or download and mail to parents. I'm going to skip these couple slides, but again, if you get, you finish this, you fill out the evaluation, and then you email me, I will send you all of this and more. Talked about Tar Heel Gameplay. Tar Heel Reader has tons of accessible books that can be either printed or brought up on a phone. All of these, based on supporting students with early conventional and emergent communication and literacy skills. So if I have a student who loves trains, loves Thomas, certainly there's just not enough Thomas the Tank Engine books in the world. But also if I just want to talk about trains in general.
Riding the train.
It has text-to-speech available, or you can turn it off. I can change the voice. And again, I could also set this up on switches as well. So I can turn the page, turn the page, turn the page.
Trains move people and things. Trains take people on long and short trips.
So again, if my student doesn't have enough books or access to books that support his literacy goals, this is a really, really great option. And again, free for everyone. My last favorite one, this is just fun. I think this is a lot of fun. So Bebot is a little robot. I'll bring him up. He looks like this. I don't think I brought him up here, but he's a physical bot that you can borrow from our PATINS lending library. But the Bebot emulator, since you guys don't have access to it right now, is free. And there's this little mat. So I'm going to change this to CVC words. And I'm going to give them a little direction. I'm going to say, go forward, turn, go forward. Then we're going to hit the word go. What a bunch of great core words, right? And all of these things could be fringe words that we might be working on. I hit go. Where did he end up? Where did he go? Tell me about where he is. Again, really, really fun thing. Somebody was talking about how fun would it be to have this guy on a big AAC core board and have him moving around. So again, lots of options for if you're working on coins, if you're working on getting around school. Oh, there's the number line. How many times do I need to press to get to number 3? All those, fun math things that you can do. Let your imagination go wild. So again, another free resource that has been a lot of fun with working with students who need augmentative and alternative communication. Again, data collection, when we're talking about this, keep it simple. Give yourself some grace, but we definitely still need to keep our data collection. And I'm going to send you all of the data collection boards that I've created over time, really simple ones, and then also supports to help families figure out, if you're thinking about some routine-based intervention, what sorts of routines or natural routines that are in your family's environment to start addressing first. All right, so we're wrapping up. At the very end, I just want to remind you that our PATINS Tech Expo is now completely online. So this is really exciting because now all of you can attend. Even if there's just one session that you're like, ooh, I'd really like to go to that, sign up for the whole thing. Who knows, there might be a couple other sessions that pique your interest, but that will be completely online and registration is open. So now at this point, go ahead and fill out the evaluation. You can, let me move my mouse. So if you want to scan that QR code, or you can go to tinyurl.com/PATINSPGP. That's spelled PATINSPGP. Uppercase, lowercase doesn't matter on this one. So please fill out that evaluation. That is so valuable in ensuring that our services can continue for Indiana Public Schools. Thank you so much for filling that out. And once you fill that out, again, it's a bit of a hostage situation. You do have to fill this out and then email me at, Jessica Conrad J Conrad at patinsproject.org. That's J as in Jessica, JCONRAD at PATINS project, PROJECT.org. So thank you again for your time. I hope you found this valuable, and please don't hesitate to reach out. As I said before, one of our resources are these daily virtual office hours that are extended through the month of April. They will be at 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. Eastern. Again, you can just pop in and, let us know. I attended Jessica's webinar. I have some follow-up questions and want to get some answers about that, or you can just email me, either way. So we hope to see you there. Thank you, and have a wonderful day.